Hi, my name is Dick Eydt. My catering company in Atlanta, Georgia is called Bites by Eydt. And today we're going to do our fan favorites of either heavy hors d'oeuvres or a three-course meal. So we're going to start with a meaty Maryland crab cake served with a remoulade sauce. Then we'll move on to 3 flatbreads. The first is a triple creme brie with 4 types of berry preserves and red pepper flakes. Then a fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella topped with pesto. And the last flatbread is caramelized onions, spicy sausage, goat cheese, drizzled with aged balsamic. The next item is either an entree or another heavy hors d'oeuvre, and it is a lamb chop lollipop that has been marinated in fresh mint, rosemary, a little bit of garlic, whole grain mustard, and olive oil. And we will take those and saute them on a steel. This steel is a 1/2 inch thick steel, weighs 22 pounds, which will provide a great sear to the lamb chops. Then we'll move on to the roasted Brussels sprouts with extra thick bacon and feta cheese. And the last vegetable is a smashed new potato, and we'll smash it and then put red pepper flakes and cheddar cheese on it. For dessert, we'll make a Toblerone lava cake with vanilla ice cream and homemade caramel sauce. And we'll show you how to make all these items. So, this is probably our ultimate fan favorite appetizer. It's a meaty Maryland crab cake served with a remoulade sauce. It's all meat, and we put them into bite-sized pieces. So they're caramelized on the bottom and very crunchy on top. So, the eggs, 1 egg, and a little bit of, you can either use Coleman's mustard. I also like the whole grain mustard. And the favorite is the Old Bay seasoning. It really gives it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of zing. You can vary on how much you want to use on the Old Bays. Just mix this up and create like an aioli, just a mayonnaise. Either add saltines to it, which I don't like. I like using panko. It's a little bit lighter and fresher, and it's about a 1/2 cup of panko. Mix that in there. And then we just have the crab. This is pasteurized crab from Maryland, and it's quite spectacular. And here is the meaty Maryland crab cakes, ready for the remoulade sauce, which we'll make next. Okay, here comes the fun part, the meaty Maryland crab cakes. And the key to this is not to make it into a ball, but just keep it strawy, and the bottom will become caramelized and the top will be a little bit browned on top. So we did this party for LVMH, who owns Dom Perignon champagne, and then the champagne above is Krug. And we did a tasting of 25 vintage champagnes of Krug, and they brought out Louis from the House of Krug. And so as we're doing the tasting and we're doing the food, every time I give him the crab cake, he's going, ooh la la, this is amazing. So I interviewed him afterwards and asked him why. And he said, because the bottom is caramelized, the top is crunchy, and it's not like wet and mushy and soggy. So just take a little bit of the crab cake, don't form it together. And also, these are bite-sized pieces. You don't want to make big pieces to it. Just want to make it. Cook them in the oven at 400 degrees. And usually it's about 10 to 12 minutes. You can watch it and see how your oven cooperates or doesn't cooperate, and how long it takes. But don't make it much bigger than that. And don't worry about making a perfect ball. Again, you want the air to get in there, and you want them to get crispy on the outside. Okay, so now we're going to make the remoulade sauce. And there are a couple ways that we can go with that. We're going to have garlic. Do you want a little bit of garlic? You want medium garlic? I never recommend heavy garlic. And the other question is, what about the spice? A little bit of Old Bay's, medium Old Bay's. If it's for your family, you can ask them, and you know them best as to what they like. I always go on the lighter side. So we'll start with a little garlic. A quarter cup of mayonnaise, a quarter of a cup of sour cream, and then we have a little Old Bay's to it. And I put probably a good teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half of that in there. And then I also add capers. For taste, texture, and flavor is a good way to go. If you want to, you can add a little bit of horseradish to it. I like it for a little zing. So about 1 teaspoon. And I'm going to hold off on the mustard. So here's our remoulade sauce. Put it in the refrigerator until you need it. Again, it can stay for an hour, 2 hours, overnight. The more it's in the refrigerator, the more the flavors develop. There you go. Remoulade sauce, and we'll go with the crab cakes. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to take out the crab cakes. They've been cooking for 12 minutes at 400 degrees. You could bump it up. Now, since the crab meat has already been cooked, it's really a matter of just getting the caramelization on the bottom and the crunchiness on the top. So somewhere in between 12, 14, even go up as high as 16 minutes. So here we go. They look pretty good. As I said, they are very fragile, and so when I tell my guests to try them, I typically ask them to use 3 fingers. I serve it with little mini spatulas, or they can just, they love them so much, they just take them right off the plate. And if so, 3 fingers. We'll pull one off and take a look at the caramelization on the bottom. You see how it's nice and brown there. And that's, again, what you're looking for. And again, my clients in Atlanta for the catering, they just love these crab cakes. I don't want to overtake the flavor of the crab cakes, but I want to put a little bit of the salt on there and the capers. So let's put that on next. Just a little bit on top. There you go. Meaty Maryland crab cakes, remoulade sauce, Old Bay's. Enjoy. So now, probably the most favorite of the flatbreads is the caramelized onions with spicy sausage and goat cheese. And so caramelizing the onions is really what it's all about. And I use extra virgin olive oil, Vidalia onions, or you can use sweet onions. I help it, the caramelization process, by using sugar, sea salt, and pepper. So whenever I cut the onions, this off the stove top so you all can see it. I'll shoot the temperature. It's 412 degrees. So this will make a little noise. It will sizzle. And now it's down to 287. So the temperature drops immediately. You don't want it going any higher than 420. Put that in the stove top. I'll flip it over and then I'll separate the rings of the onions and we'll have great caramelized onions. So now we are going to finish off caramelizing the onions with the sugar, sea salt, and pepper. They've been on the stove top for about 7 minutes, and we'll take them off and get them ready and start assembling the flatbreads. So as you can tell, this was 4 of them, and they've shrunk down quite a bit. And you can see the nice caramelization, coloring, the flavor. The aroma is quite nice. Flatbreads, the first one we'll do is the spicy sausage. We'll add the goat cheese to it. And if you notice that these flatbreads, the sausage is in a row, a line, because when I cut them, I'm going to cut them in a row and a line. And so each piece will have a little bit of sausage, a little bit of goat cheese, and a little bit of caramelized onion. And then we'll drizzle the aged balsamic on top of that. This is not your ordinary flatbread. It's more like a skyscraper. And if you didn't cut them into bite-sized pieces, they would just get out of hand and you wouldn't be able to eat them and hold them. But this way, like we do with the meaty Maryland crab cakes. So that's ready to go into the oven on the pizza, on the steel. Next one we'll do is triple creme brie. And we'll put that on just a dough that's been cooked. I don't want to go too far over because this will leak and separate. So when that's finished, I'll put on the 4 berry preserves and the red pepper flakes. Now for this one, it is a great, nice size of good tomatoes, probably a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick. So you'll really get a flavoring of the tomato. Put on fresh mozzarella. And when this comes out, we'll top it with pesto. It will look good, and pesto and tomato is a great combination. So here are the 3 flatbreads, the brie with the 4 berries and the red pepper flakes, spicy sausage, caramelized onions, and goat cheese. And we'll drizzle the aged balsamic on there. And then we have the fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella, and we'll put pesto on top of that. So the first flatbread is the triple creme brie. have 4 types of berry preserves with red pepper flakes. So I will cut it first along the seams of the brie slices. I cut the brie about at least 1/4 inch thick. You don't want it too thick, you don't want it too thin. And then we're going to cut these into squares. You can hear the crunchiness because it's been cooked twice. Then I'll drizzle a little bit of the jelly on top. It is a little messy, but it's another one of the fan favorites. You know, people have cheese and crackers, brie and bread. Well, this is taking it to a different level with the warm brie, the warm bread, and then you have the red pepper flakes. So there you have triple creme, brie, 4 types of berry preserves, and red pepper flakes on a flatbread. Excellent. So now a very healthy flatbread, fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella, and then we'll top it with some pesto. So you can see how thick that is. You can really taste all the ingredients. So when I cut it right down the middle. Again, I staged it so that the tomatoes were in the middle. You can hear that crunch because it's been cooked twice. And now I'll cut it one more time. And that's a crunch of the crust. And one more on this side. If you wanted to, you could cut it another time down here. So a little bit more of a bite-sized piece. Just a little bit of pesto on top for good color. It's great flavor. Tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, pesto. I tried it just with basil. Just not enough flavor in there. And there you have it. Fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella, and pesto. Here comes the caramelized onions, goat cheese, spicy sausage, drizzled with aged balsamic. And once again, you'll really hear the crunch when I cut into it. So you can see how the goat cheese lines it up. And I'm going to take the knife and cut in between the goat cheese, caramelized onions, and the sausage. Hear that crunch right there? The last thing I'll do is I'll put some aged balsamic. Again, the goat cheese is tart and sharp. It counters with the caramelized sweet onions, and then the aged balsamic, a little sweet. It just brings it all together. And there you have it. Caramelized onions, spicy sausage, goat cheese, and aged balsamic. A great holiday menu. Here are the 3 flatbreads, the brie with the 4 berries and the red pepper flakes, spicy sausage, caramelized onions, and goat cheese. And we'll drizzle the aged balsamic on there. And then we have the fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella, and we'll put pesto on top of that. Okay, so the next is the lamb chop lollipops. And they're marinated with rosemary, mint, whole grain mustard, garlic, a little bit of garlic, more garlic, and olive oil. And then we'll sear that on the steel. We have a baking steel. It's a 1/2 inch thick, weighs 22 pounds. And when we cook it on that for about a minute and a half each side, it will be seared and hold all the juices and be quite yummy. So on the marinade, you can marinate the lamb chops anywhere from a day up to 3 days. So here we go. Since this is just really on the outside, you don't have to take out the stems. Here is the rosemary. I'll put in 3 cloves of garlic. We'll add the olive oil, and then we'll add the whole grain mustard. The whole grain mustard will help it emulsify and add some good texture to it. Okay, now we're going to get the lamb chops. We can do this one of two ways. We can either make single lollipop lamb chops or you can do doubles. When I do these for parties, I do singles. If you were doing this for a entree, you would French these down, take off all this fat. But for the lollipops, you want as much fat on there to get the flavor and so it doesn't get dried out. So we just cut them into single lollipops. With the fingers you like, and then put it in there. Again, you can keep this in the fridge for a day, 2 days. And there you go. Lamb chop lollipops. So the lamb chop lollipops have been now marinated for a couple of hours. I put them out at room temperature so all the lamb chops are at the same temperature. And then I will saute them and sear them on my steel. That's that 22-pound, half-inch thick steel that I use for the flatbreads. It'll take about a minute, 2 minutes per side, and then we pop them out. Here we go. So, lamb chop lollipops. Put them on the steel, 2 minutes, flipped it over, another 2 minutes, and here you go. So it's nice sear. You can still see the marinade that we put on there. And so when you bite into it, you get the lamb, you get the mint, the rosemary, a little bit of garlic in there, and the whole grain mustard. So it's a great device. It's a great appetizer. If some people want to have the fatty part, go to it, but a lot of them don't. But it's just the flavor that you get from the top part. It makes it that much tastier. It's quite good. Quite good. So here we are moving on to the next course. We're going to do some smashed new potatoes with red pepper flakes and some aged sharp cheddar cheese. And then we're going to do Brussels sprouts with extra thick bacon and feta cheese, and we'll drizzle aged balsamic glaze on top of it. We'll cook it at 400 degrees in the oven. Brussels sprouts will go for about an hour, and then after that we'll put on the bacon and the feta, and when we take it out we'll dress it with the aged balsamic. So, a good amount of olive oil. I like using sea salt on both, and then fresh pepper. There we go. So we'll put that in for an hour, and like I said, we will check the potatoes and Brussels sprouts after half an hour, take them out, give them a little shake, and we're ready to move on to the next course. So now it's been about a half hour, so we'll check on the Brussels sprouts. and also on the new potatoes to see how they're coming along. Brussels sprouts are starting to look pretty good. So these are in good shape. I'll just flip these over. And then we check on the new potatoes. And depending on the size of the new potatoes, they don't take that long to cook. But I like them to be rather soft so I can smash them down. And when I smash them down, I make them all the same level. So it's all even. Probably anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick. Give this one a little test. See if the knife goes through. It's getting there. I'll put those in for another probably 20 minutes. So the potatoes have been in for an hour, as well as the Brussels sprouts. We'll take out the new potatoes, smash them, add the red pepper flakes and the aged sharp cheddar cheese. And then on the Brussels sprouts, we'll have the bacon and the feta and put that back in at a lower temperature. You can do it anywhere from 15 minutes of melt up to an hour or so until you're ready to serve it. So here we go. So you can see the great coloring on the Brussels sprouts. You can also see the extra ends of them and how crisp they are. Brussels sprout French fries. You can take those out, put them on a plate, put a little sea salt on there. You can put it on a paper towel to absorb some of the excess extra virgin olive oil, and then put the sea salt on. Basically, every piece of Brussels sprouts gets a piece of bacon. There you go. Now, a little feta cheese. And the feta you can either add now or you can add later. I like to add it now because it melts in to the Brussels and the bacon, and it just gives it a good sharp little tart flavor to it. And now we have the smashed potatoes. And for this, you can smash it a couple different ways. You can use a spatula and push it down. Again, you want it all about the same level. Push it all together, they're all touching one another. The red pepper flakes, again, how much red pepper flakes you want on there. I sort of use a helicopter approach. Conversely, the cheddar cheese, who doesn't like sharp cheddar cheese that's been aged? And so we just put this right on top. Roasted Brussels sprouts with extra thick bacon, a little feta, and our smashed new potatoes with red pepper flakes and aged cheddar cheese. Okay, so now the Brussels sprouts are ready to go, as well as the smashed new potatoes. So we'll take them out and plate them. Okay, so you can see it's formed a nice little crust with the aged cheddar and the bacon and the feta cheese melted, and we'll plate this up. There you go. Smashed new potatoes, aged cheddar cheese with red pepper flakes, roasted Brussels sprouts, bacon, better. Oh, pretty tasty. So, now for the Toblerone lava cakes. Toblerone chocolate and butter. Then we're going to mix eggs and egg yolks and sugar and put this on a double boiler. We'll let this melt. Take 5-10 minutes tops. So for dessert, we have the Toblerone lava cakes served with vanilla ice cream and then homemade caramel sauce. And now we're going to make the caramel sauce, which is melted sugar. Then we'll add butter to it, and then heavy cream. And then in order to equalize a little bit of the sweetness, we'll add sea salt to it. And that will be the caramel sauce that we'll put on top of the lava cake with the ice cream. And it's one of our fan favorite desserts that we do in Atlanta for our clients. So here's a cup of sugar. Move it around, and we'll just put it on the stove top. Now when you melt the sugar, don't put it on high, put it on medium. You want a slow melt. If you put it on too high, it's going to burn, and it smells like burnt sugar. Nobody wants that. So you're going to watch it, it'll start to brown, and just stir it. It'll take 5 to 10 minutes, but just keep your eye on it all the time. And once that is all melted, then we'll take it off the heat, put in the butter, whisk that around. When all the butter is incorporated into the sugar, into the caramel, then we'll add the cream, whisk that around, and then add the salt. It'll take about 10 minutes in total. And then we're just going to whisk in the butter. Can you smell that, guys? And you do this off heat, otherwise it's just too hot. And if it gets a little bit too around the edges, it's cooling down. So then I'm going to put it back on the stove top. So now for the second stage of the Toblerone lava cakes. We've already melted the Toblerone chocolate with the butter in the double boiler, and now we're going to prepare the eggs, egg yolks, and sugar, and then we're going to prepare the ramekins with lots of butter and lots of flour. And the reason for that is we don't want the lava cake to stick to the ramekins, so once we turn it upside down, it will come out easily. So here we go. So we're going to take 2 eggs, whole eggs, and 2 egg yolks. The rest is chocolate, butter, eggs, egg yolks, and sugar. And it's sort of like if you've ever made pancakes where you had the griddle on too hot. Take it, put a fair amount in there, rub it around, turn it around. It's sort of like bacon. You can never have too much butter, you can never have too much bacon. So it's a fair amount in there. We have 4 ramekins ready for the Toblerone lava cakes. So now we're going to incorporate the eggs and egg yolk and the sugar mixture into the melted Toblerone with the butter. Add this mixture to it. Stir stir this up. And we're only going to add 2 tablespoons of flour to this mixture. And then we'll pour it into the ramekins. Flour. 1 and 2. So that's ready to go in the oven. So it's 450 degrees for 12 minutes, exactly. Check it at 12, give a little wiggle, and then you can pull it out. So here we have the Toblerone lava cakes, and it is like cooking pancakes. You can see it's a little jiggly still, and it's cooked on the top, cooked on the sides, cooked on the bottom. We'll let it rest here for a minute. We'll flip it over onto the plate, let it rest for another minute, and then we can pull it off. In the meantime, I will help the process of it coming out of the ramekin by just taking a knife and gently cutting around the edges, which also gives you an indication of how well it's cooked. And again, having plenty of butter and plenty of flour also helps it from not sticking to the sides, or even more importantly, to the bottom. So it looks pretty good. It's still bubbling in there. Having a good oven, having it at 450, cooking for 12 minutes. It is an exact science, and we'll let that rest for a minute. Up and over, boom, done. There you go. So you can sort of see on the sides it's starting to come out, so it's cooked well. So let's not waste any time. Put a little ice cream on there. I'll put the ice cream on the side. And when I serve this for my parties, I have it as a buffet line, 10 or 20, 30 of them, and let them choose how much ice cream you want, how little ice cream you want, how much the caramel sauce do you want, how little of it. And I just drizzle this all over. Again, the helicopter up high, and you get a nice little drizzle on the ice cream, on the Toblerone lava cakes. It is the best dessert that we make, and it's our biggest fan favorite. Thank you very much. So, thank you again for watching our show. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, showing you some of our fan favorites from Atlanta, Georgia, from the Bites by Eydt Catering. We had the great meaty Maryland crab cakes with a remoulade sauce, flatbreads, triple creme brie with red pepper flakes and 4 types of berry preserves, fresh tomato, fresh mozzarella topped with pesto, and my favorite, the caramelized onions, spicy sausage, goat cheese, sprinkled with aged balsamic. Then for the main course, or another heavy hors d'oeuvre, we had the lamb chop lollipops, marinated in mint, rosemary, a little bit of whole grain mustard, a little bit of garlic, and then we moved on to the smashed new potatoes with red pepper flakes and aged cheddar cheese, and the roasted Brussels sprouts with extra thick bacon and feta cheese. And for dessert, our biggest fan favorite is the Toblerone lava cake with vanilla ice cream and homemade caramel sauce. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please follow me on Instagram, Bites by Eydt at Instagram, or bitesbyeydt.com. For our next show, we'll be working with some more of the flatbreads. We'll do a lobster and brie, brushed with a little bit of butter. We'll do a bacon, lettuce, and tomato flatbread, and then we'll move on to a whole beef tenderloin, served with a horseradish sauce, mushroom marsala sauce, and a gorgonzola cream sauce. And for dessert, we'll do a creme brulee with mint and fresh raspberries. Thank you again.